Welcome back to another exciting episode of Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I am, of course, your host with the most filled better, the podcast mogul. And today's guest is a true pioneer in helping small businesses, authors, and startups make their mark in this crowded world of businesses we work in. For over 2.5 decades, this visionary entrepreneur has been at the helm of eReleases, a groundbreaking company dedicated to increasing visibility and credibility for those who dare to dream big, our favorite type of people. Through strategic press release distribution, he's helped countless businesses and creators amplify their message, get noticed, and achieve the recognition they deserve. With a quarter century of experience and a passion for empowering others, our guest knows exactly what it takes to stand out, build that authority, and turn stories into success. Whether you're a budding entrepreneur or a seasoned pro, this conversation is going to be packed with invaluable insight that you just can't afford to miss. So join me in welcoming the remarkable and talented Mickie Kennedy to the show. Mickie, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
All right, Mickie, we're going to just jump right off the bat here. What made you 2.5 decades ago decide to throw off the shackles of the 9-to-5 and commit to being an entrepreneur?
For me, I think it was just not, I didn't like being told what to do. And so in my previous jobs, I just always resented being told what to do. And I was just like, man, if I could just work where I had no one breathing down my neck telling me what to do, life would be so much easier. And little do you realize that being an entrepreneur, you know, now you have customers who are taking the role of being over you, but there's still the feeling that you're your boss. You set your time, your hours, the way in which you work with people. And so in a way it's freeing. But for me, it was just sort of like, I just needed to get out of this mentality of always feeling like I'm being parented.
Oh, yeah, I can get you there. They just want to control everything and they don't understand. Let us free a bit. Let us survive. Let us grow. With when you decided to do that transfer, did you have a period where you were doing the e-releases or your side hustle and the main job, or did you say, "F the main job, I'm going full bore into this crazy world"?
So I kept a full-time job as I started e-releases. And at the same time I started e-releases, I was also involved in consumer newsletters at the time. And this was like the 1990s, late 1990s. And, you could have a joke list with 1 million subscribers and get $40,000-$50,000 a month in advertising at that time. And so, e-releases wasn't bringing in a lot of dollars, but it was consistently bringing in a little bit. And I ran it like a newsletter. It was just an email distribution to journalists that I had reached out to and established relationships with. And I was also doing these other consumer newsletters. Like I think we had like horoscopes and jokes and trivia and movie reviews, just to name a few. And around the .com crash, I saw the advertising revenue for the consumer newsletters go to zero. And that was a wake-up call for me. I sold off most of my large newsletters. I had 3 that were over 1 million subscribers, and it wasn't life-changing money, but it was, enough money to pay off my student loans, pay off my wife's student loans, and have a deposit for a house in the suburbs. And so
that's life-changing money. I can guarantee you,
well,
at least 3 or 4 audience members are going, "That would change my life."
Well, there's a lot of people that were having real life-changing money around the .com era, where they would be like waking up one day and be worth $30-40 million. And it wasn't anything like that. But it was greatly needed. And when I was left with just the ashes of having sold off the consumer newsletters, I realized that e-releases had grown through the .com crash. And I thought that was interesting. And the funny thing is, e-releases has weathered every sort of economic uncertainty by growing through it. We grew through the real estate crash, and during the pandemic, we grew almost, I would say about 30 some percent. And I think what happens is that when there's economic uncertainty and a recession, number one, everybody who'd been told to do PR and had put it on the back burner because they were focused on paid advertising had now stopped paid advertising because you have to preserve capital. And they were like, okay, now I have the time to spend on PR, and I can build a PR campaign of 6 to 8 releases, send them out through a service like mine, and spend less than $3,000. So that's like a whole year PR campaign, as opposed to 20, 30,000 a month in paid advertising. And so the other thing is, when there's uncertainty, there are people doing pivoting, and they want to communicate their pivots to the marketplace and let people know that, what they're doing. And that we saw so much of that during the pandemic, where people were changing their offerings, tailoring things to the marketplace, and as a result, they needed to communicate it. And so we really, grew through that. But that was what, I was left with e-releases after the consumer newsletters died, and I just continued to operate it and refine it and put more time and energy into it.
At what point did you hire your first person for e-release to really take on more of it just than like a VA who just handles that really minutia that no one really likes, but someone who works in the company?
Right. So I hired a really good friend of mine, I guess about say about 4 years into it. And at the time, I was doing 60 to 80 hours of work a week, and I was stressed. But I just didn't want to hire somebody unless I felt very, very comfortable that if we had a bad month, I could still continue to pay their salary. And so I had a friend who had just left her job, and it was just perfect timing. And so she stepped into that role. And the first thing I'll tell anybody is, taking a friendship and then, involving a business is not a good recipe, because my friendship did not survive that. But
Oh,
we did work together for a few years, and I think it just it wasn't a fight or anything. It just was like we just started demarcating very professional lines and not personal lines anymore. And then when she left, it just was, like an employee leaving. And that's the unfortunate thing. And I would also caution people against hiring family as well, that's a recipe for disaster as well for a lot of people. And not everybody, I think it would be a disaster, but I think for me, it would be a disaster. I am an entrepreneur who's very short. I don't coddle people and make them feel warm and friendly. And I'm not the best manager. That being said, I don't manage my staff anymore. I stepped away in April of 2015 and put someone else in place for managing the day-to-day operations, because I was a micromanager and not good at it. And I probably was toxic. I know I was toxic to my employees, and I know I was toxic to my friend in retrospect. But we've talked a little bit about it since then, but we'll never be like as close as we were at that time.
what's really interesting is the relevant the reveal that you found in yourself, knowing that you're not the greatest boss.
Well, I didn't just naturally wake up
No,
and
obviously,
discover
I
that. I
it
hired
would have.
someone to investigate why my turnover at my company was 1 year. I couldn't keep people more than a year. I
Oh,
would hire editors into it, and I was part of a marketing mastermind. And there was a HR professional there from the UK, and she's like, "Hey, I only work with large clients, but Mickie, I see you waste a lot of time in the marketing mastermind when you're on the hot seat talking about your employees and about the turnover and how things are bad. And I could probably solve it for you." So she interviewed my customers, she interviewed my staff, she looked at my job postings to see if I was attracting the wrong people. And she came back and said, "Mickie, the people that you're hiring are great. Your customers love them. It is you're a micromanager, and your employees feel like they can't do anything right, and that you're constantly standing behind them telling them how they should be doing better. And I would agree. I would do that. I didn't see that. I didn't see it as nitpicking, but I saw it as perfecting. I'm sculpting these people. When they get off the phone and say, "Hey, next time," rather than say no, let's just sort of reposition the question. Because I learned in marketing, try not to answer with a no. Try to steer the conversation. So, like, do you offer local only distribution? While we don't offer a local only, you can add local distribution to our national, and sort of like just rephrasing it and stuff like
Mhm.
that. I was doing that throughout the day with everybody constantly. And I recognized as soon as she told me that what I was doing, which I thought was making people better, I considered it sculpting and fine tuning and sanding the rough edges, was really just driving people crazy. And the HR person said, "Mickie, you cannot expect employees to have every conversation the way you would do it. You've learned these marketing techniques and how to speak, but they're going to speak naturally. They're in a customer service position. And as long as they're speaking naturally and it's being received well, you should just be happy with that." And so I said, "Okay, I'm going to be better." And that day, I said to myself, "I'm not going to micromanage anymore." And by the end of the day, I had gotten up and was behind another employee when she hung up the phone and said, "Hey, next time someone asks that question, try." At that point, I just gathered everybody. We went to the lunchroom, and I said, "I'm leaving Allison in charge. I'm going home. I'm going to focus on marketing. You know how to reach me if you need to." And you know, hopefully things will be better from here going out. And it was. Everybody that was there at that time, with the exception of one employee, is still there. And that was 2015. And, we have several people there that have just been there so long. And it's rare for anybody to ever work now for just a few years. It's usually a long term. So I was the problem. And, I'm a perfectionist, probably why I was attracted to entrepreneurship. Perhaps I wanted everything to be perfect, and I spent so much time on everything. I wanted every conversation here. And that's the wrong side of things, because what I did when I went home and focused on the bigger picture and the marketing of the business was able to triple my company since 2015 in revenue. And the number of staff has gone, it's also tripled as well. And the people are having a great experience. I left them in under the management of someone who was already recognized as a maternal figure. She was a little bit older than everyone there in the office, and so it was very natural for her to step into that position. And she had also had management experience previously. So yeah, I mean, it didn't come easy, but as soon as someone I trusted told me I was the problem, I could see it for myself, and I just went with it. And I know that, some people don't have the luxury of stepping away and just working from home and isolating themselves from the day-to-day operations. But for me, it worked out. I don't know if I could have solved it staying in it, but I do realize that I am not a good manager of people.
I and I love that self-awareness of you. Like, obviously, after you learned it, you didn't go F you. You don't know what you're talking about. You looked and you analyzed and you're like, okay, yeah, I do some things. That's something I need to work on. How have you gone about becoming a better version of yourself by investing in yourself to fix that situation? Obviously, hiring the person or promoting that person to lead the team while you do the big picture things was a big investment for you. But what is there anything else you've done to become a better version of yourself?
Right. So I felt very guilty after I discovered that I was the problem. And
Probably a good thing. Probably understandable.
so I started doing a yearly retreats with the staff. I pay for us to go to the beach for a week with them and their significant others, or in some cases, a sibling. One woman takes her sister, and it's just fun. I cook for everybody. I'm fun. I'm fun loving. They don't see the nitpicking person that I used to be. We just have a completely different interaction. and it's expensive. It's about $20,000 a year, but I think it really helps us sort of bond emotionally and have a really strong relationship. And I do invest in my own, with marketing masterminds and things like that. I'm part of an entrepreneurs organization, EO, and there's a local Baltimore chapter, and I've invested in that. But I think when it comes to my staff, it's just, trying to empower them, give them the tools that they need, and trust them to do the job. And it seems to be working really well. During the pandemic, there was zero change to my business. I had already given all of my staff laptops that sync all of their data to their desktop and said, hey, if you ever are having to, thinking about calling a personal day because the cable company is coming, you just fire up this laptop and you can just work from home and take the necessary time you have when someone, comes in and needs to work on something. And so I made it just a place that was a lot more pleasant. And if people felt like, I just don't have that energy to go into work today, they could just work from home. And so everybody just, as soon as the pandemic happened, they're just like, we all just went, yeah, we're going to do it. And it didn't really change anything. It was just very seamless. And I think that, having invested in that, I'm not brilliant or anything, but I just recognized that work-life balance is hard. I got really complacent working at home, how convenient it is getting Amazon packages and things like that. And so life happens. And I think rather than people having to take a half a day or a personal day, just being able to be a little bit of flexible and giving them the ability to work from home was really important. And, we still have a lot of people who are still working from home. But most of them do try to come in a couple of days a week. I think Monday and Tuesday, most everyone's been trying to come in because they do enjoy the social aspect of the team and being around each other. But there's no mandates or anything like that. It's just I think it's just naturally, organically worked well.
I like that. I also like the fact that you trust your staff. Like that's something I think more businesses, and I see a lot more in the entrepreneurial space, them trusting their staff because they understand, hey, I'm not going to be able to be doing everything. If I want this business to grow, like you realize, like when I step away from handling the day to day and the staff, I can focus on that big picture stuff and I can 10x the business easily, like you've gone ahead and done. And trusting your staff to do that because they're adults at the end of the day. You're not hiring kids that you have to follow. They're adults. You have to trust them that they know what they're doing and that you've done the right job in hiring them. Um, and speaking of hiring, because you had to during the pandemic expand your team because you were bringing in more business. What was it like hiring during a pandemic versus the hiring that you probably did previously before, everybody had to be at home working?
It was different because rather than meeting in an actual office or anything like that, you're just meeting over Zoom and juggling that. But I actually thought it was fun. It was I guess it's a little more casual. I felt people are a lot more comfortable on Zoom now than previously, and so I thought it worked really well. I met a lot of really great people. Some uh, weren't a great fit because we do have a lot of training, and it really does take about a year before an employee knows all the little minutia of like newswire requirements and things like that. So there were some people that were getting ready to go back into grad school, so they were only looking to work for about a year and stuff like that. But I found it really good. I thought that it worked well. The onboarding was new because it was easy before to just literally have people look over someone else's shoulders. But you can't do that virtually. Not real. I mean, it's probably possible, but
It's a little more difficult to get it done virtually.
yeah, exactly. You'd have to probably use a little more technology, but it worked out, and I think that everybody is doing a really great job and have acclimated, and nobody's necessarily better than the others. It seems like after a couple of years or so, it all sort of equals out, and everybody's just part of the team.
I love that. I love hearing that. And I love how you have this hybrid situation, and you're looking for the more work life balance, which I think is important from businesses to do, and the entrepreneurial way during that shift. That's how we're doing it, because that's what we want. We want that freedom to be able to go on our yacht when we finally get our yacht, or go on that vacation with our family. I want to know though, because small businesses, big businesses use press releases all the time. They're just throwing them out every day for no reason. They're just like, "Hey, our president walked into the door." I want to know, why do you feel smaller businesses, medium to small businesses, and even solopreneurs fear PR?
I think that they're intimidated because they don't know a lot about it. They think that PR is handled by the high priced PR firms and publicists, which they do handle a lot of it. But I think that they don't realize that, they have something that could work really well with, with PR. The truth is that journalists get the most success often with articles where they write about an undiscovered company, someone in the industry that no one knows about, than covering the big giant companies that they have to cover. Nobody gets a pat on the back and said, great article about that latest Microsoft Office update. But the large companies like Google and Microsoft, they have to cover them, but they love to put the spotlight on new companies, new tools, new services, and often they are startups or even side hustles. Someone working full time, but they've created this tool or this service, and they're looking to turn it into a real business. And so, being small is not a disadvantage when it comes to PR. It's actually, a magnet, and journalists love to be seen as curators. And so when they highlight a new tool or service that's doing something very unique in the industry, they get a lot of shares of those articles. They get a lot of engagement on that page, and a lot of people really appreciate it. And so, they're more successful covering the individuals that I think most of these individuals don't feel like they're ready for PR. I'm too small, I need to wait until I can afford, a big giant PR firm. And the truth is, you don't. This is something that you can do yourself. You can do it sort of press release based, and there's no reason that you couldn't do a PR campaign of 6 to 8 releases, trying and testing different strategic approaches and see what works. And whether that takes you a year to do 6 to 8 releases, or a little bit longer or a little bit shorter, it's completely up to you. But it is one of those things that I think that any business can do, and the smaller you are is not a disadvantage. But yet I know there is this imposter syndrome with a lot of small businesses, and they feel like, I'm not ready for this, and I don't matter. And I'm telling people, you got to take that head garbage and just stuff it down, and, and move through it, because you'd be surprised how well you can do as a small business with PR.
I love that, and it's true. PR is so important for all businesses, because it can tell you about 100 different things. And I want to see, because you've been in the industry for a decade and a half here. You've seen some changes from the dot-com booming, press releases, to the COVID induced panic releases. Um, but over that time period of two generations, or a generation, if you will, um, what have you seen this shift in PR, or in the press releases? What kind of shifts have you seen?
Well, first I saw the introduction of bloggers, and that was very controversial for the news wires, because they weren't giving journalists, bloggers in particular, they weren't giving them access to the newswire that journalists have. journalists have a login at the Wire where they can go in and they can customize the feeds that they're looking at. And so if you cover fashion, you could go in there and look at the fashion feed, but you can also customize it and say, hey, exclude these keywords. So maybe you don't cover most retail fashion. So you exclude names like JCPenney and Target and things like that. Or you can, make sure that you definitely want to pin to the top releases that mention certain keywords and things like that. And they were not comfortable giving bloggers access to it. I remember at one point going to bat for a blogger and saying, hey, you're not comfortable giving this person access because you don't believe their credentials are that of a journalist. But I'm here to tell you today they get more traffic than the leading trade publication. And they're like, how do you know that? So I sent them to Alexa, which at the time people used to measure and rank websites based on traffic, because everybody had the Alexa toolbar, and that's how they were able to measure traffic. They came back and said, wow, we're going to talk about it now because we didn't realize that. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I think that this is a good thing for journalism. It's shaking it up. It's democratizing things. And they came back and started giving them, bloggers in particular, access to the newswire. And I was pleasantly surprised to find out and realize that they're doing the same thing with influencers. I follow a guy on TikTok called Snackalator who does a weekly roundup of new products hitting grocery store shelves. He also does the same thing with fast food companies each week. And I was watching it and he says, I can't tell if this is a glaze on this product, but I get all of these images from the press releases directly off the wire. And we'll keep an eye out when it hits the shelves. And I was like, wow, even this guy's using, press
Wow.
releases. And so things are changing. And on Instagram, there's a lot of fashion influencers that are getting videos and photos of things directly from the wire. And it gives them an advantage that everybody feels like, wow, they know what's really happening, because the moment a brand releases something, they've already reported it to all of their followers. And it just makes them seem like they're even more in than the fashion magazines, because it's going to take a couple of months before these things roll out in monthly magazines. And so it really does give you the impression of being an insider. And so I'm very pleasantly surprised that The Wire took what they learned with bloggers and were right there at the forefront, because they had already opened the doors to influencers, and I wasn't even aware of it until I stumbled across it.
I love that. I love that changing that. It's even surprising someone who's been in the game for so long. Um, I want to know, where do you see your company in 10 years? Like, you've been in here 25 years, you've been running e-releases, you've been taking it through more upheavals than most people have in a lifetime. Where do you see your business and you in 10 years from now?
I think that more education is where I see myself in particular within the business. I do a little bit of that now, trying to educate my customers as to the strategic types of releases they should be doing. But I think that there's just a lot more room for educating and navigating people through PR and how to take advantage of different opportunities. Because if you build out a press release strategy for maybe you're trying to target social media influencers, that's going to look a little bit different than if you're just trying to target, say, trade publications or newspapers. And so I think there's a lot more opportunities for educating my customers and getting them, to still do it themselves. And there's also perhaps the possibility of me getting involved in doing it for them. I recognize that some people want someone else to do it for them, and I've always been an advocate for do it yourself, and let's DIY your PR campaign. And I always see myself involved in that because I'm so passionate about it, and for people being able to do something with just a little bit of money. But perhaps I might be moving into that at some later date as well, of being able to do it for people who are just too busy, or it's not an interest of theirs that they want to do.
Oh, I can nearly guarantee you there's someone out there going, wait, I can hire Mickie to do it for me? Yes, sign me up, because look, you have 25 years of knowledge sitting in there. They don't have to do any worries about any mistakes being done. You can jump skip the whole thing. Um Miguel, I'm having a great time chatting with you, and I'm thoroughly enjoying this conversation because you have a wealth of knowledge. However, we are coming to the end of the episode, which again, my worst part of the episode for me because I have to say goodbye to you. But before we do, Mickey, I want to know what advice would you give to your 10-year-old self on business life, relationship, whatever you would feel your 10-year-old self would need.
So I started my business not having a business background. And one of the things I learned in my marketing mastermind was try to measure everything and potentially split test. And originally I started split testing landing pages, but you could split test processes in your business. I split tested how I welcome and onboard new customers because I had one person tell me that she felt what I was doing was unprofessional. I was sending this package of love. I called it a shock and awe package with all of this fun stuff, crab seasoned chips from Baltimore, an Edgar Allan Poe figurine that said nevermore, and because of the Baltimore alliance to him, and just a lot of fun stuff. It was a party in a box, and I took what she said, and rather than be offended, I tested new customers, split them in half for 6 months. 6 months got that, and the other 6 months just got a book and a welcome letter from me. And we looked at the lifetime value of them at 1 year and 2 years, and I came to realize that the people who got the $70 package that I spent and had people pack up and send, that $70 package was costing me about $2,000 a customer. The people who just got a book and letter, their lifetime value was already over $2,000 more than the other population. And it seemed that that package, even though it was fun in a box, was really turning people off who were looking for a professional company and a professional service. And so I had to sort of step back a little bit, but measure everything and split test what you can.
I love that. Oh, I love that little thing where you thought it was adding value comes out to look like it's taking away value, where like a $10 welcome package was getting was 10xing, triple xing your business. That's some great advice. I love that, testing everything and just seeing it what works and what doesn't and getting feedback. As I download that into my brain and let the audience take that, I'm going to jump off stage. I want you to tell my audience where they can find you, follow you, work with you, whatever you want to tell them, because I think they can use it and sooner rather than later. So Mickey, the floor is yours.
Okay. So my website is ereleases.com. All of my social media is on the lower right, including my personal LinkedIn. Feel free to ask questions of my staff. We're available by chat, phone, or email. And I have a free masterclass, and it's a very small one. It's an hour-long video. And for anybody who's considering PR, it's a great place to start because it breaks down the types of releases that you should be considering. And if you build a PR campaign of 6 to 8 releases and you follow that model, you will have at least 2 or 3 press releases that generate a lot of earned media. That's what we call it when you get these articles written about you. And that's available at ereleases.com/plan, PLAN. And again, it's completely free and it's a small commitment. And I guarantee if you go through that class, you'll know more than many PR firms out there, because it really is chock full of the stuff that is working today and all the things that I'm seeing and doing 10,000 releases a year for my clients.
Well, if that isn't a friggin' endorsement for that, I don't know what is. I'm definitely going to be jumping over there to ereleases.com/plan. That's PLAN, where you can get that free mini mastermind from Mickey. Mickey, I want to thank you just for that alone. I know that's going to be millions of dollars in value to my audience, but also for your time spending it here and encouraging people to start the PR system earlier in their business rather than wait until they're big and successful, because the PR can help them bring it. So I want to thank you so much for that wisdom.
You're very welcome.
To my audience, make sure you check out the show notes down below to connect with Mickey and get that free little mastermind and learn what more than 97% of the people out there are doing. I thank you very much for listening. Remember to always invest in yourself.